Hey everyone, I'm Nerdarchist Ryan, and I'm joined by
I'm Ted.
Nerdarchist Dave.
and so Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. Today we're going to talk about a magic item on the MageForge. We're going to be forging away at a magic item called the Thorned Whip. The Thorned Vine actually.
Yeah, Thorned Vine.
The Thorned Vine.
So what do we have on this? Because typically the way we do MageForge is we come into when we make it for you live here on air, or however we record it live. We come up with some kind of concept as to what do we have, and then we build the story, the quirks, the powers, so that it's already
The whole boom, shebang, shebang.
Yeah, like you said,
with made up words.
So, so Ryan, the Thorned Vine is your deal. What is it?
Okay, so I came up with a PC for pre-gen for a game I'm running at a local convention here in the Philly area. So if you're around the weekend of I think the 17th to the 19th, I'm running that Saturday night this game. But the pre-gen, the idea I had was she's kind of the she takes on the mantle of this hero in this region because he was her mentor, and he had this whip called the Thorned Vine. The whole thing was like, he was a little, like a halfling. She's a halfling as well. So the idea of like tripping people up and so the Thorn Vine is always there to thwart people and be, like a defender of the downtrodden sort of thing. So the Thorn Vine is going to be a magical whip. A whip that I was thinking maybe it could have the, what's that ranger spell? Ensnaring Strike. Ensnaring Strike. Yeah. So like giving it some of those abilities, and so we're kind of going with that vague concept.
The cool idea is there isn't a magic whip anywhere in the DMG, right, other than just a straight magic item,
magic weapon. So we want to make something unique. So and using the whip, really cool. It's only a D4 weapon,
right?
But it's a martial weapon with reach. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. You can kind of do interesting things with it. So the idea too is like we came up with it's an actual organic thing. It's alive,
right? Like it could be from the root of or a vine. It could be like a living vine or tendril of some organic creature that had existed. So we're trying to like pick at what that could be. It could be part of a giant shambling mound or something like that.
Well, yeah, and then like also the other idea is like this thing is kind of significant. It's not like, or at least unique anyway. So it's not like your standard +1 longsword or even a +1 whip. It's got a little history. Maybe it's got a purpose. We've reskinned it so it's a whip, but it's actually made out of this vine with thorns on it.
So it's kind of like a rose vine type of situation where it's got all these spikes on it.
That's been mounted to like a handle,
right? Yeah.
Because it sucks to get thorned by your own whip.
Yeah, no, unless it requires blood sacrifice to use it.
So I mean, if this is a living thing, it would be kind of cool if while it's on your waist or hip or whatnot, if it's kind of always moving just a little bit. I think that would be pretty neat.
Yeah, like out of the corner of your eye. Did I just see that thing just like wave a little?
Yeah, and the other thing too, like so it's being passed from one basically. Kind of like Robin Hood-esque folk hero type character.
Right, it's a mantle. Right, it's like the Dread Pirate Roberts from Princess Bride. It's sort of like there could have been like 3 or 4 previously, and now this character has it, and because she has both the cloak and the sort of marquee weapon that this character used, everybody assumes that she's that person.
So it might be cool too that like if this whip is something that's kind of like it always seems to find its way into the hands of that kind of character, a folk hero, someone who's a defender of the downtrodden, someone who is not necessarily your typical hero type.
So like would it
the
be
underdog?
So if it's I want to say it's a sentient item, but I mean if it's alive and kind of through manipulations or whatever winds up trying to fall into the hands of goodly folk. What if it had more of like a darker creation story? So you talked about it being off of some gigantic shambling mound. Well, what if it was like off of some like ancient shambling mound?
Well, not only that too, like to actually be a whip, which is at least 10 feet long. That's a big ass vine. You know, even
Yeah.
from a shambling man. I mean, they're big and all.
All right, well, you know,
Well, I mean, jungles you can have really big vines. I mean, you know, like so the length of the vine, you know, it's not so significant, but
It is
Well-
if it came off of something that was alive.
yeah.
so like, you know, in our world, was it Chimes of Discordia we're calling it now? You know, what if this shambling mound, you know, wandered into like a chaos storm, and
Was just struck again and again by lightning because
Yeah.
they tend to grow.
so in that situation, this thing could become so massive that it could easily have vines that are, you know, 10 foot long or so.
It's like a strand of its vine hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That could be a way to go off of it, to branch off, so to vine off of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it came off of this thing, you know, that's you know, it was a shambling mound that basically wandered into one of our chaos storms areas. You know,
And just feasted.
yeah. Well, in shambling mounds, they get hit points when they get struck by lightning and electricity. But you know, even weirder things happen when it's chaos lightning. You know, that keeps hitting it, and you know, part of being random sometimes is doing the same thing over and over again. So you know, the thing gets struck with 100 lightning bolts, and it just grows to like Godzilla proportions.
You know, in the back of my head, like something that I might use at some point in time for an adventure, I'm imagining a shambling mound that's so big that like it walks across the ocean and like people think it's an island, and like so it's this moving island basically.
I've read Cthulhu stories where it's like, you know, the jungle gets up and moves.
Yeah.
You know, so you could even go with like that darker origin of it's also almost Cthulhian, like in the sense that even though it has a sentience about it, but it lacks awareness of this world because it is so beyond, you know, beyond what we are, beyond what the mortal realm is. Like you know, it's looking off into the fifth dimension, you know, so it doesn't even, it's vaguely aware of what's going on around it.
So for us, it would be almost like sloth-like. You know, it doesn't care about here. It's just like, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, it just kind of is.
Yeah.
You know, it's the thing in the jungle that is. Yeah, I could definitely see like villages sprouting up around it where things worship it.
Yeah, definitely have some kind of like dark cult.
Yeah.
Thinking like, oh, this thing is amazing.
So maybe it's like, you know, all these tribes worship it, and after so much worship, you know, that's like
It does literally become a minor power unto itself because of the worship.
yeah, and it actually takes like the prayer to actually for it to focus on this realm. You know, so maybe they're constantly bringing it offerings and sacrifices, and you know,
So doing like a Mayan sort of Aztec.
and only through like their biggest of holidays, you know, where they all come out to worship it, and it's only when they basically commune in one voice that it can actually even peer into this realm.
Okay,
So, like,
so I think we've just created a lesser deity, like in the course of creating a magic item.
or our version of the Tarask.
I could totally see this thing like, you know, with like skeletons and like items and things that are like literally encased in it, or it's like holding in its tendrils, you know, not like its arms, but like in its, you know, hair essentially.
Yeah, the vines and the protrusions,
Things
coming
that
off of it.
the worshippers could like braid stuff into it, like as ornamentation, but it's like consuming the things because it's organic material.
Yeah, well,
but-
maybe that's how the sacrifice is happening.
So-
They actually bind it
To it. Yeah.
They slowly get absorbed into it.
That's just creepy and ridiculous. Yeah.
Yes,
wow.
it could be really horrific too. Like it takes them like a year to absorb somebody or something ridiculous.
Oh,
An organic dreadnought.
yeah, you're just there, and you know the whole the process itself doesn't actually allow you to die until the end. If you wanted to go really dark with it,
Oh man.
could totally do you know, like a nod to the Croach and Jim Butcher's Alara series, where like it slowly feeds on you, but like after like a couple hours, if you try to pull yourself out, like only your skeleton gets removed because it's all like the rest of your skin is so loose it just falls off.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
So
we have this whip.
we have
we did have a whip.
We have this whip and we have this minor deity.
Yeah.
So you know, essentially, like how it would happen was, you know, during one of the holy days, you know, the priest prays to this thing, asking for guidance and something, and instead of guidance, he gets a whip. He gets this thorny vine.
This thorn vine like drops before him. Or something.
Yeah, yeah. He basically says, "Oh, it's a divine message."
And he could have just been molting, like just yeah, like yeah.
You know, and he sticks it to a piece of really nice wood, and you know, it becomes the thorned whip, or the thorn vine.
All right, so so what are we seeing as far as a actual properties? We've already determined that it's a magic weapon. It's got the quirk of it moving. It's sentient in so much that it's got a history that it tries to find its way into the hands of.
Well, I think that can just be a fated thing where it just happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to. It's not like it's literally crawling towards somebody.
So it just it always gravitates to a certain type of person for some reason, which is weird because it's like completely the opposite of how it was originated.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I see it being a
well, since it's a whip, it's not going to do a lot of damage.
Make it a +1 weapon.
I would say we make it +2. I mean, yes, it definitely increases its power, but it's like it's 3 to 6 damage.
But it's going to have other abilities, so that's why I would say make it because it's going to have ensnaring strike. Is that yeah? And then what is that one? There's a druid thorn whip, right?
Yeah.
Right, because I wanted to be able to function as that, and I think that goes up to a D8, right?
I think so.
Well, that actually goes off. It's a cantrip. It scales. It depends on the level of the caster.
Right.
Well, so then we would set the level of the item.
Yeah. I would probably do it just a baseline because a D8 whip, that's still pretty nice. And then but like I would have it.
But if they functioned off of charges, then you'd have a limited number of times that you could do that.
Well, I'm still okay with that because then I think the range on that spell is like 30 feet.
Yeah, it gives you a
whip that has a range of 30 feet. That's a plus. Then
and it's also a pull.
That's why I wanted to keep it as a +1 weapon still, because once you activate that ability, I would say it still keeps its magical that +1 bonus.
I would allow that.
So it's a D8 +1 now. Like you've just so it's charged. You're limited. But so yeah, there's the baseline of the D4 that you could just use that for easy fights, or maybe you're doing your Indiana Jones thing, swinging off of a branch or whatever. But then
so you're looking at the +1 whip. You can use ensnaring strike as a cantrip with it, or sorry, thorn whip as a cantrip, and it's going to have charges to be able to use ensnaring strike.
I think both the cantrip,
both of them
should eat into charges.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you did like a die 3 + 2, which means minimum of 3, maximum 5 uses a day, I think is pretty good. I mean, you could burn through that in a fight.
Yeah, and maybe we say it can store 5 charges. So this way, if you had it sitting around for a while, eventually, like you'd have all your charges in it. Yeah, and
if it gets a D3 + 2 a day in 2 days, it's full.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you can set the cap of what charges a thing can have.
Like, well, most things the charges only get expended. Like you have to expend the charges. Yeah. And then at dawn,
it regains some.
It regains them. So you can't go past the max.
But yeah, some items have varying levels of the maximum. And I'm just saying, if you do it at 5, it keeps a nice little cap of you can do this, just not all the time. So
we do 2 for ensnaring strike and 1 for thorn whip, or 1 each.
Yeah, that's a good question on that. I don't know. I would have to look at the relative scale, but I mean, having a range 30 finesse weapon, that's going to go off of your dex, that's doing a D8. It's kind of nice.
Would it be off of dex, or would it be off of a spellcasting modifier?
I would make it off your dex. I would make it
because it's a weapon. Yeah, I would let it stay as being the weapon.
It's got to be known.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and also you also get the effect that it's also a pull.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, shoot, and this is kind of part of the idea of the character. Like I made this fighter be a battle master. The stuff you could pull off with a whip with that range. Yeah, it would just be incredible. We were saying about the things you can do with a whip, it's a melee weapon.
Well, technically, you can pull the same stuff off with a ranged weapon as well, though.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true too.
Yeah, with a longbow, the same battle master could do the same maneuvers from much further away.
Right, and then if he takes the one that lets you do it at even longer range, sniper makes you not have disadvantage from 600 feet away or something like that. Sharpshooter. Yeah. So there's that.
So I don't think that 30 feet is really that big of a deal. It's just an interesting thing that they have access to, especially when you're you're all the way over there. What are you going to do? Yeah.
and snaps the cigarette out of your mouth.
Yes. But he can't do it again because now he's out of charges.
All right. So are we doing 1 and 1? Or are we doing 2 and 1?
Well, it depends on how fast you want the charges to complete too, and and then the question is, which one is the 2 and which one is the 1?
Which one's the more powerful effect, really?
Well,
Because
I would look at Ensnaring Strike as a first level spell versus Thorned Whip as a cantrip. That
I actually think Thorned Whip is better though.
yeah.
I have to look at the mechanics, side of it. So
because I think the issue of Ensnaring Strike is they get a chance, and I think it's only like a DC 10 strength check to break out of it or something. Like it wasn't. Or does it go off of your spellcasting ability?
I would think it goes off the spellcasting ability, and it's probably against strength, which is isn't one of the better saving throws. But most of the time, if
you could set the DC for what the item is, because it's not like the character who is wielding it has to be a spellcaster.
No, I would say DC 13 or 14 is about in line with most items I've seen. Like only the more potent items are like a DC 15. That's built into the item.
So if you have a DC 13 that's strength to break free and you use it on a caster, that can really screw them. Especially with the basic stat array, a lot of casters will dump strength, so it's a -1. So if you got a 13, I got to roll a 14 or better to break free from this.
Yeah, it's not happening. Well, that's when you hope that you're the sorcerer that took what is there? There's still spell meta magic feat still.
There is.
Yeah.
There is a meta magic where you can alter like the way you cast it, but I don't remember off the top of my head how exactly it works.
Yeah,
I haven't played many sorcerers yet.
All right, so do we think 1 and 1 is not too powerful? Five uses a day, max of either power.
Yeah, I think it really works because you're going to burn through. You could, like I said, you can burn through that in one fight.
Yeah. Absolutely. Five attacks, especially if you're giving it to a fighter at 5th level. They can use 2 of them in a round.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think the 1 charge per thing, because with the Thorn Whip, that's like, are we saying that's basically every attack? Every time you do it, you're spending the charge for the attack, right? Like,
if you want to use it beyond a +1 whip, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like for when it's got the reach of 30.
Yep.
Yeah, like that's every time you make an attack, it's burning a charge. So yeah.
Unless you decide to make it, it lasts for the round, and someone more attacks, use it. And use it until it's done, but then you'd probably want to increase the cost.
The cost. You could do 2 and say this effect lasts for a minute. It costs 2, but this effect is basically a minute is the duration of all combat. It's like
so now it's like, okay, well, you can use it, for 2 combats a day, at a range of 30 feet. I think that's pretty potent.
Yeah, and that's worth 2 charges to like you have it for the duration of this fight. Yeah, so I think it's made. It's crafted.
It's crafted. It's been forged.
That's right. Well, and probably not going to make this thing on the forge because it's very organic. He's not going to be happy if you go
I was
slicing
doing that for the MageForge, not the actual item itself.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to ting. It's going to be
thunk, squish, then green chlorophyll squirts out. When you beat it.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah,
I don't want to know about you beating it or anything. But on that note, let us know what you think about this episode of MageForge in the comments below. You can like, share, and subscribe.
You can hang out with us over on nerdarchy.com
or hang out with us on Facebook.
Well, until next time,
stay nerdy.